So before we jump right into the video, I kind of want to give you guys a little background knowledge on public and private school and like a little history about them. So this is just broad range. This isn't just like Wisconsin, those three little schools that I'm mostly going to be talking about. So historically, identity, oppression, and privilege has shaped education in both public and private schools. So public schools were meant to serve all students, but there are some systemic issues like there was segregation and underfunding in certain areas that meant marginalized groups often received low quality education due to underfunding. While some public schools in wealthier areas, the communities had better teachers, better resources due to having more money. While historically, private schools had been tied to privilege. They were often accessible only to wealth families, excluding many based on income status. Some private schools also designed to maintain separation by race and religion and reinforcing social divide. So just to give you guys a little background knowledge on what they were, and kind of just want to give you guys a little bit knowledge on what they are today. So, and I hope this helps. Alright, so after a little debrief on kind of the historical background, public and private, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of where they are today. So identity and oppression and privilege continue to affect students at both public and private. So in public school, funding often depends on the local property taxes. So schools in wealthier areas still continually get more better resources and access to better teachers, while in low income communities, they don't get those kind of resources. This also creates an unequal opportunity for students and for marginalized groups. Issues like racism and implicit bias and underrepresentation in leadership and curriculum also impact students' experiences today. So in private school, privilege is still a factor because tuition costs often limits access to wealthier families. Even with voucher programs, not all students can afford extras like uniforms or transportation, and majorly private schools also do lack diversity, making it harder for students from marginalized backgrounds to feel included and supported. So these challenges shown how identity and privilege continue to influence the equality of education and opportunities for students to receive. And then something else I want to note before we also jump back right into the video, I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say before we get right into it. I just want to say something about like how teachers, districts, and governments can disrupt oppression structures in education. So first, teachers, schools, and government can take steps to make education fair for all students. They can use inclusive teaching methods like celebrating different cultures and making every student's voice heard in the classroom. And one thing I also want to really note is that they can challenge their own biases, which I think is really, really important. Also noted in the book Culture Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zara Harmon, where she does notes that emphasizing the understanding and addressing implicit bias is key to creating an equitable classroom. She further explains that teachers must first reflect on their own biases and recognize how biases might affect their perception and actions. So we all have biases, and I think recognizing them can really help us stop us from imposing those in our teaching or imposing them in how we create the school structure. And I think this is really, really important to note. And this is one thing that I do think that is a really big step that we can do to kind of stop oppression in schools and also create a more fair education system. And then one thing I also want to note is that I think districts can provide more funding and resources to schools that are in a lower income area, so that kids in those areas don't really have to get lower education due to where they live. And I think that is very, very unfair. And I also think that we should invest more training to teachers and train them a little bit more about how to culturally teach students, rather than just saying, oh, well, this is how you kind of just teach math, da-da-da-da. No, I think we should really show them how to teach them to be really engaging and have students critically assess what they're learning. And yeah, and I think that's really, really great. And then one thing I think the government can do is create policies that promote equality, like increasing fundings in schools in low-income areas, and also expanding access to early education, ensuring that all students have access to technology and support programs. So by working together, teachers, schools, and governments can break down the barriers and give every student a fair chance to succeed. So Today I'll be sharing you guys a video on public school versus private school. But I would like this to be more informational rather than, oh, this is better than this one, this is better than this one. I will be sharing experiences in this video about my own experiences and from a parent's perspective and how they saw their children grow up from private to public, and also be sharing experiences from other students who have had experience in private and public. And I will be zoning in on 3 schools, which is Sun Prairie West and Marshall Public Schools and Lakeside Lutheran, that is a private school.
3, 2, 1.
Funding is very different between public and private, and it's also very different between public and public. So first I'm going to get into the role of kind of how they're different between the public schools and the public schools. So public schools like Marshall and Sun Prairie West are primarily funded through local property taxes, state funding, and federal contributions. This means that the amount of money the public school receives can vary depending on the local community, wealth, and tax base. For example, since the Prairie District is larger, they get more money compared to the more smaller rural districts like Marshall that face more financial constraints. While as private schools, it's a little more different. Private schools also vary compared to other private schools on like private donations and tuition costs. But right now I'm going to focus heavily on Lakeside Lutheran because it is more popular private school in Wisconsin. So Lakeside Lutheran relies heavily on tuition, donations, and private funding. Unlike public schools, they do not receive government funding unless they participate in a program like Wisconsin Parental Choice Programs, which provides a voucher for eligible families. However, even these programs, private schools still depend on families paying tuition and donations to cover the cost. So, and one thing I also want to point out is that a lot of private schools also like to advocate how small their classroom sizes are, and that also kind of shows how much they need of donations. And when you think of private schools, people usually think, oh wow, grand, luxurious. And they are really, really nice schools, but the majority of them in Wisconsin aren't as grand as public schools, even the rural ones. And this really plays an impact funding on schools as a whole, both public and private, because this kind of limits the ability for schools to hire staff and maintain facilities and offer extracurricular programs. Like public schools are required to serve all students, which means funding must cover a wide range of services from special educations to language programs, while private schools having smaller classes and more flexibility in spending might not have the same level of resources to support diverse learners unless they have significant private contributions. So you can see how public schools kind of have a greater range on what they can spend on because they have to spend it on services to accommodate students, while in private schools, I want to say most of them would like to do that, which I hope that's all their goal, but they don't have to do that. Plus, they don't really have the flexibility to do that because it relies heavily on donations and also contributions from other incomes. And so this also hopefully provides you with a clear balance on connecting funding to a broader discussion of educational equality and the challenges faced by both public and private. The next thing I want to get to is regulation, because it also plays a big role in schools. So public schools like Marshall and Surrey West have to follow strict state and federal rules. They must use appropriate curriculums, give standardized tests, and hire certified teachers. They also have to accept and support all students, including those with special needs and or who don't speak English, while private schools like Lakeside Lutheran don't have as many rules. They can create their own curriculum and aren't required to use a state test or hire certified teachers. They also don't have to accept all students, but can set their own admission policies. However, if they take part in programs like Wisconsin Parental Choice, which they do have to follow some additional rules. So basically, to sum this all up, public schools
follow stricter regulations to ensure fairness for everyone, while private schools have more freedom to run how they want. So, since public schools are required to serve all students, including those with special needs and with language barriers, this really ensures that everyone is getting equal education, and the regulations really do promote inclusivity. While since private school does have fewer regulations, it gives the school more freedom to really innovate and create specialized curriculums. However, this could lead to inconsistency in the quality of education and may exclude students who cannot afford tuition or meet administration criteria. And the regulations in public school do aim to provide equal opportunities regardless of students' background or location. And understanding these rules can really help us see kind of like the gap in funding, because if a public school is not able to accommodate for someone who has a language barrier, that really shows how much more funding that school needs. And public schools are held accountable by the state and federal law to have the students receive the basic level of education, while private schools are often accountable to the parents and donors and may not have the same level of public oversight unless they participate in programs like school vouchers, which Lakeside does. And then this also has an impact on families. For parents, understanding these differences can help them make informed decisions about their child's education. It also sheds light on why some families choose private schools despite the higher cost, or public schools despite the limited resource. So parents can really see how, I really like this private school because I really like how the curriculum is done and how they teach students differently from a standardized public school, because public schools do not have the same freedom as private schools to kind of do what they want with the curriculum, because they have to abide by the state and the law. Hello, I'm here today with Adriana Starbar, who raised 2 kids who went to public and private. Now, can you kind of give me a little bit about your experience with public school and kind of the environment?
As a background, I am from Mexico, and the point of view in Mexico is that a person has to go through the school suffering, and I suffer. In Mexico, it's a discipline. Even though we are the 3rd country, but Mexico has a discipline. Mexico enforces respect for the teachers. What I saw, the development of my kids was terrible. It was a low quality of homework, low quality of handwriting. It's terrible. They couldn't. I didn't saw the way they will develop quality in their work.
Do you feel that way? Because do you think that the school just didn't have enough resources?
No, the school has plenty of resources. When my father saw my school, he said that my school was a palace. But my school is nothing close of what I saw in the public school here. This public school here in Waterloo and Marshall, those are palace.
How do you feel about the environment with Lakeside Lutheran and private school?
But in the private school, there is more discipline, there is more respect for persons with authority, and that I like it. They enforce that, which is good.
Do you feel like, since the public schools that we went to, since it's they are underfunded, do you feel like that really played a role in kind of like the teachers that they had? And also, since public schools also have a really strict curriculum on what they can and can't do you really think that really affected how teachers had to deal with students who were misbehaving and students who kind of just weren't guided the right way?
But yes, the students here in the United States are very different in Mexico. In Mexico, our parents have a strong discipline to us, and then we reflect that in the school. Here in the United States, the parents have very weak discipline, and they look for the protections of the kids. They don't like nobody touch their kids, and that is wrong.
Do you feel since Lakeside Lutheran and especially private schools, they obviously have more flexibility with the curriculum, they can make things a little more like harsher or lenient? Do you really feel like that really played a role in why a lot of private schools do much better statistically wise on their SATs, ACTs? Do you think that really kind of?
Yes, it does.
Well, that's all for today. I want to thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. I really hope you guys enjoyed a parent's perspective and also a perspective from somebody who hasn't grown up here but seen their children grow up here in both public and private. Hello, today I'll be interviewing Rachel Van Buren, who's a former student in Lakeside Lutheran and a current student in Prairie West. Can you tell me a little bit about the atmosphere in Lakeside Lutheran?
It was a good atmosphere. The student body was very close-knit.
Did you feel safe trying new things and things you weren't really used to?
Yeah. Everybody was pretty accepting of one another.
Can you say the same for Prairie West?
I think groups of people are accepting, but other groups of people aren't.
How do you feel teacher-wise? Do you feel like the educators in Lakeside Lutheran cared more about your education and how you do in class than Prairie West or vice versa?
I think public school cares a little bit more. They try to be more, not involved, but they put more effort into having you get your work done, missing work.
Do you feel like there are more resources to help you in public school?
Yeah, definitely. There's student services. I think public or private school had resources. It's just public school had more.
So after having that lovely interview with Rachel Van Buren, I kind of thought a little bit about the vocabulary that she used when I asked her about the teacher-student relationship, and it kind of made me reflect back on the book Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Harmon. And I want to note to chapter 6, where it says building the foundation of learning partnerships, and there she kind of talks about like the importance of building a good relationship, so it's kind of like a team. And something that I really want to note about this is that I feel like this is very important for both public and private schools to add and to kind of make note of, because having the strong relationship with students kind of makes the students feel like trusted with their teachers, knowing that they're going to be supportive, and this will make them be motivated to do their best. And I think this is very important because it does create a growth mindset, because learning partnership supports students utilize their assets and strengths, identifying their challenge opportunities, set personal goals, and work with educators to achieve these goals. I think after students realize that they can achieve certain goals with someone to help them and push them and motivate them, after they achieve them, I feel like they can go on and realize, hey, I can do this myself. I've done something that I didn't think I could do. In the beginning of the year, maybe I wasn't so good at my vowels, but towards the end, I'm mastering my vowels. And I think this is really important for students to kind of see like what they can do. And it's a really cool realization for students to realize, I can do this, and to know that they're supported throughout the way by their teachers. And I really feel like this creates a growth mindset, which is very, very important for students. Because Harmon also talks about the power of the growth mindset, where students learn that effort, not just talent, leads to success. And teachers can always help students by praising hard work and showing that challenges are opportunities to grow. And one thing I also want to reflect on in reference back to the book is that she also does say a lot about challenges and also feeling like there's a big struggle. And there's a difference between, oh, I'm really struggling and I feel like I can't do this, where there is productive struggle, where you kind of need to think and kind of need to work your way through this. And the good thing about teachers is that they'll be there to help you work through the difficult challenges. And after students realize, hey, with a little bit of support, I could work through this, maybe they can start working through this on their own. If they're more independent learners, I feel like being helped or being nudged to get helped by teachers, by this pact, kind of helps them see like it is okay to get help if I'm struggling, so that I can have productive struggle and kind of accelerate my learning rather than sitting there and being stuck. And I feel like this is really great. That's something that I learned today from the book and that I just wanted to note. Something that I want to note that I had an experience with in school, in private school, I had this teacher that I was just reminded about when I had to do a homework assignment in my Brotherless Society, kind of about teachers and kind of how they teach and how they teach Indigenous cultures. One of the teachers that really stood out to me that I wrote about is Jeff Ryans. And something that really resonated with me was how he was able to kind of present information and let the students critically think for themselves. And I think this also goes back on Zara Harmon's trying to say how it's so important that we have students have growth mindsets. And a real quick quote that I want to reference to is from learningfocus.com, where they say by providing students the opportunities to develop their own critical thinking skills, they will successfully learn. problem solvers, and citizens in a rapidly changing world. I think this is very important because I think school is much more than here's some facts, I need you to memorize them and do them for tests, rather than here are some pieces of information. I want you to critically think about how this information resonates with you, your cultural background, and kind of what are the effects and causes of this. And this is really, really important because in the real world, you can't really just say, here's the facts. There's much more to than the facts. It's not just black and white. There's many different colors. I think that's just one thing I really wanted to note that this teacher did very, very well on, and it is really important that a lot of teachers also maybe incorporate this in their learning rather than giving out facts. Having a curriculum or having a set plan to make sure that students are able to critically think about what they're learning, and this will rapidly improve engagement because they have something to think about rather than something to memorize. So I just want to thank you for watching my video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. I really hope this gives you a different perspective on public and private schools, knowing that just because it's a private school doesn't mean that they have a lot more resources, but it just kind of means that they have more flexibility in the curriculum, while in public school they don't really get that kind of flexibility, and they might actually have more funding and more resources than private school. It just depends on where you live and kind of what public or private school you attend. I really also hope that this also gives you a little history knowledge on public and private, and kind of what they were and what they are today and what we can do now and hopefully in the future to stop oppression and inequality. And I really hope that this video kind of gives you a little more to think about and for you to critically think for yourself on maybe where you want to be as a student. Would you rather be in public or private, or maybe you as a parent, whoever wants to watch this video, on private and public school. And I really just hope this also gives you a little insight on Zara Harman's book, The Culture, Responsive Teaching in the Brain, where we also talk about building relationship with the students, embracing diversity, addressing unconscious biases that are very essential to taking steps to having a diverse classroom and promoting culture and promoting inclusivity. I think this is really, really great, and I really hope that this video helps. And whatever intent you have on watching this video, I really hope that you achieved it. Anyways, have a good day.